c'est encore Yves Kenao. C'est toujours Yves Kenao qui revient. Cette fois-ci, pour vous dire que Tempo Afrique TV vous offre plus de 4000 chaînes de télévision. Les chaînes européennes, les chaînes américaines, les chaînes asiatiques, les chaînes africaines. À un prix imbattable. À un prix imbattable. Tenez-vous bien. $185 pour 12 mois, inclus le box. Alors, où est-ce que vous pouvez trouver mieux que ça si ce n'est pas sur Tempo Afrique TV? Mesdames, Messieurs, appelez seulement le 612 804 0295 et vous serez servi. Vous serez agréablement surpris de voir plus de 4000 chaînes de télévision rouler sur votre écran comme ça et vous choisissez laquelle vous voulez. Alors mesdames, n'hésitez pas. N'hésitez surtout pas et ne vous faites pas compter. Prenez votre téléphone, prenez-le tout de suite et appelez le 612, le 804, le 02 95. Nous sommes là, ici à Tempo TV, pour rendre votre vie simple et agréable. Alors, saisissez l'occasion. $185 pour toute une année, pour 12 mois, inclus le box. Quoi de mieux que ça?
Saturday evening with Ellie Naimo Talk Show at Tempo Afrique TV. So today, I want to talk to you about what has been happening so far. As you guys know, so much news, little time, and a lot can happen in just 1 week. So I'm going to talk specifically about the mail controversy that is happening right now for the upcoming election, for the federal election between Donald Trump and Joe Biden. So there has been a lot of rise and questions that the citizens are starting to have based on, whatever is going to happen with the mail voting. Some people are not sure how that's going to go. Will everything be accurate, or will there be a fraud or anything like that going on? So these are the things I definitely want to mention and talk to you all about. So everyone can have a good idea and a perspective of what to do in their states. Now, since, I'm more of in the Minnesota states, at the end, I'm going to give you guys a guidelines of ways to go about the mail voting and to make sure that your vote counts and your vote is registered and it gets there on time as well. So now I'm going to go ahead and start. There has been many questions rising through the minds of our American citizens as we are less than 80 days away from the election. Now, here are some of the few questions that some of you may be asking, but as far as some of the reports that we have is questions like, do you have to request an absentee ballot application, or will one be sent to you automatically? So usually there's one sent to you automatically. So if you have registered in your local state or online or in your local area and you are a registered voter for the 2020 election in November, you should have an absentee ballot mailed to you. So it should arrive in your post automatically. If you still don't see it and you don't have it, I would definitely recommend on requesting one, just to make sure you have it, because you rather have two than nothing, right? So if you do end up getting, the one you requested for sure, then at least it's safe that, you got the absentee ballot there, and then you can fill it out, sign it, and send it in. The other question is, will your ballot be counted if the mailman is late? So I'm going to give you guys a little bit more detail on the end about that. That's one of the newest questions that is rising in the minds of the American citizens. So November 2nd is the deadline for the balloting to be in. So anything after that will be considered late and will not be counted based on the USA.gov information. So you'll see a lot of them there. And another question is, if you fill out your absentee ballot wrong, can you fix it? Now, that's definitely going to be one of the most challenging moments. So, for example, if your name is not correct, or if the spelling is wrong, or you forgot your signature and stuff like that, it's going to create error, and that's going to delay the process. So, if that is detected a lot earlier, I'm sure they can save that vote and count it in. But if it reaches the deadline where it is considered late, then basically it's a late ballot and it possibly doesn't count in the voting. So now I'm going to go more into details of what has been going on between the two political parties. So President Trump has been announcing these consistent warnings about the widespread voter fraud that no one can prove. And some are saying it would have been a continuous fall without the pandemic, but the pandemic changes everything because it has caused so many states to revisit how they should vote. So as you guys probably been heard, Donald Trump has been saying this for many, many days now, probably since the beginning of earlier in the pandemic. So maybe like around March, and so maybe not that early, but a little bit in between. But he's been consistent about it, about the mail-in voting. And with that raises worries among the American citizens. He's definitely, assuring that there could possibly be fraud and nothing could be proven because we can't prove who are the voters, and it could be, the illegal immigrants or the different type of people that are voting in. So it's not 100% accurate, as he has been consistently saying that to the community. And so for this election this year, officials have pushed to make mail voting easier to help protect people from the coronavirus. Some of these changes are happening in the courts, state legislation are happening, which most of them are really out of session right now because of the pandemic. State officials and advocates over how to adapt existing election laws to fit a pandemic. So some of these are being taken to court. So they're trying to pass these laws and legislations in the court, try to make it work or make it easy as much as possible, so everyone can be able to vote and every vote can count. And these changes are happening because of the pandemic. Which is very unusual. This is the most unusual election of all time compared to other elections. Now, in previous elections, you guys probably know, people can go to the poll. Majority of the people go to the poll, so they can just go there and submit their vote based on their states and their local, federal, state where they have to go vote, the location they have to go vote, the polls. People pack those up on the day of the election, so they go and vote. And some of those, like elderly or people who can't, go out there or do much, they also can use the absentee ballots and send that in. And it was much easier in the past, based on what I think, because it's not the postal is not being bombarded by so many absentee ballots, because you have majority of the American citizens that are going to the poll either way. So it's only those few who don't want to go to the poll, or they can't go to the poll. They use the absentee ballots through the mail, and a lot of those has been proven. None had gone wrong with it. So a lot of those ballots, they get there on time. So now with this 2020 election, there's going to be a lot of issues. There's definitely going to be a lot of issues because you have the whole entire United States, okay? They're trying to get everyone to send in their absentee ballots. What is that going to cost? That's going to cost more people to work. That's going to cost overtime. That's going to need more postal workers to try to get these absentee ballots out on a timely manner. Okay, and that's one of the thing Donald Trump said about having the $20 billion be contributed to rescue some of these postal workers so that, all the mail gets in and people can get paid overtime, or they can hire more people to make this process as easy and as fast as much as possible. Because I'm pretty sure soon as the voting is open and everybody can mail in their absentee ballot, everyone is going to go ahead and drop their ballots in the mail. So imagine 325 or 23 billion American citizens that are going to be voting this year, and all of that 300 billion ballots are going to be through the mail. It's really going to flood up the post office, and so that's some of the things that they're trying to fix, and things like that. So the Democrats said they're trying to make sure every vote counts. And voting rights advocates are raising the alarm that the expansion of existing absentee and mail voting system could create widespread disfranchisement and discrimination unless done correctly. So the Democrats are working on trying to make this mail-in voting as easy or as much as possible. So we won't know until the election if everything is accurate, if everything is in the mail, and if all the ballots are counted. So we're hoping that's going to be the case, We're hoping that, whatever their plan is for the voting, that is going to work out for every single citizen, and everything will be done accurately and as it should. Now, as far as with the pandemic, there's a little contradiction there. So I know with some of the states that are being on lockdown, and because of the pandemic, some people can't go out, they can't go vote. But then again, you have all these protests and all these riots going on, and everyone is out there pretty much marching and doing whatever they need to do in the street. So wouldn't that kind of question lightly that, when by county, that this day is open for this county to vote, or this day is open for this county to vote, and that we know well enough that we must wear our face masks and keep our social distancing, whether we want to wait online, and still vote by poll. So that's one of the other things, it's like, why can't we just go back to the old way of voting, or the natural way of voting, going to the poll? And respecting others that we're going to wear our face masks and keep our social distancing. And on that day, Donald Trump is trying to approve the excuse absent from work. So whatever day that you need to go in and vote, take that day off completely, go to the voting poll and go vote. Even if you have to wait an hour or 2 hours, however long the line is going to be. Just like the same strategy they use in stores. Now, most of the common stores that I go to, of course, like Joann Fabric for crafting and things like that, they'll have about 2 to 3 people inside the store at a time. Okay? And they'll have the line outside and everybody standing 6 feet apart. Now, those are some of the strategies that can be used so that, as we know that this election is the most important election of the year, that people can stand in line 6 feet apart, go to the voting, and wait till the other person is done. The next person goes. But then again, we have 300 billion people. We still don't know how it's going to work. So it's almost like one strategy is going to be debunked on top of the other. It's going to be debunked on top of the other. So we're all going with the mailing bullet and see how everything turned out. So we hope and praise that everything is going to come out good. It's going to come out right. Whoever you're voting for, it's all going to count in. So that's what we're all hoping for there. The Republicans argue that having a last-minute election changes in the courts are improper and can create opportunities for vote fraud and foreign interference, though they have prevented no evidence of widespread fraud. So there's no evidence that there's going to be foreigners coming in and submitting in their votes with the absentee ballots, or, abusing that, or not, or to make sure it is just the American citizens that are, that are registered to vote, that are eligible to vote, to do their voting. So there's that little argument there, is that there might be foreign fraud. So meaning if you're an alien, okay, which is your green card will usually label you as an alien, meaning you're not an American citizen yet, There's no proof that you're an American citizen with the absentee ballot. And so they're using another strategy to make sure, where some of the states are saying, send in your absentee ballot with a photo of your ID. So in that way, it could prevent the foreign fraud, or, people who are coming in illegally and, signing in the absentee ballot and having their vote be counted. So having your state ID and having with the absentee ballot and mailing that in together is one way that they are trying to prevent the foreign fraud. So we hope that works too, because it is a pretty good strategy. According to the group of the researchers at Harvard, Northwest, and Rogers University, as well as the Harvard Medical School, and the litigation currently winding its way through the courts could affect millions of bullets, stating that many as 64% of Americans are expected to vote by mail this year. So 64% is confirmed. That's more than half of the United States population. That is confirmed, and they have accepted that they're going to vote by mail. So get your mails in early and as soon as you possibly can. While the rest of the 40-something percent, a little over 46% that are still undecided, or that are questioning, or that are probably not sure what they want to do. It depends on your state. So whatever your states allow for you, or how you're going to vote, I would definitely check in the states to check all those. So now going to the late ballot. So if the late ballot, and what happens? A late ballot is one of the biggest reasons an absentee ballot is rejected in America. According to data published in the Election Administration and Voting Survey from 2018 and 16, in the primary election, hundreds of thousands of ballots have already been rejected for this reason. The post office has reportedly warned state officials that on-time delivery cannot be relied on for mail elections in 46 states and D.C. And some of these states, including in the 2020 battleground, is Pennsylvania, North Carolina, Nevada, Michigan, Minnesota, Texas, and Arizona. So some of these states are having a main battleground, so they haven't officially decided how the voting is going to go. And we're less than 80 days away. So time is ticking, and it's going really, really quick, okay? But I know in Minnesota for sure right now they have the mail-in ballot, and they also have the poll voting as well. So there's those two options available for Minnesota. The rest of the states are still having their undecided issues. So in that case, most states require that election officials receive mail ballots by a certain time on election day. So in Minnesota, a court ruled that ballots postmarked on or before election day will count. Republicans appeal, and the case is ongoing. The rest of the other state is still a battleground. So they're, like I said, they're still trying to figure out. So, and one of the main biggest highlight in having to prevent absentee ballot errors is your signature. So if you forget your signature, your vote may not count. That's one last thing. So 13 states are requiring absentee ballots to be signed by a witness or a notary public, or require additional documentary proof, like photocopies of the driver license. So as I mentioned earlier, rules like this only leads to debate in some of the courts, and advocates argue witness signature are a useless requirement that do not prevent fraud, while also making it harder to vote by mail and carrying an added element of danger during the pandemic. So, other leading process where voters still needs to be reviewed by the election officials before they are counted. So these are some of the in-process issues that could delay the voting process, that could also have your absentee ballot go missing. Because once you do your part as a citizen, once you do your part, you fill it out carefully, you make sure all your information are correct, you put your signature on there, you drop it in the post mail. So once it's in the hands of the post office, it's out of your control. So at that point, you can only, hope that your mail gets in on time by November 2nd, that you're relying on the post office to deliver it on time so that your vote can be counted. So that's where it becomes more difficult, because once it reaches the post office and it leaves the post office, and then it gets to where they separate it and they're trying to count the ballots, how many people are there working on it to make it faster, and also checking all the errands and all the problems that could possibly make your absentee ballot rejected, and all of those processes. These are the things that they're working on and that we're all concerned about. So the concerns are very real in that area. And once they're all counted in, we don't know if everything is going to be announced. So they might have to announce the president based on whatever absentee ballots they get on the day of the election. So it still leaves an open gap in our head, because it's like, was my vote counted? Did it went in? Did they actually got everybody? Or is this just only the absentee ballots that were perfect, that were accepted, and that made it in that count? So those are definitely some of the concerns there, I would say. And so according to the US.gov, so I'm going to give you guys some little guidance based on the data that is in the US.gov site. States are making it easier for citizens to send in their absentee by the mail. Okay? And every state decisions and the rules are different. So just expect that, in your state, you definitely want to go to the USA.gov and, look up under your state and see what their rules are, what their requirements are, what their guidelines are. So that in that way, you have an idea what to do, where to go. And it's good to research those earlier enough instead of waiting on the last minute. I know we're like a busy people working, taking care of families and things like that. But definitely make the time for it. If you need to request a time off to take care of all that at once and do your voting, it's a pretty good idea. And many are still in the process of deciding how they will handle voting during the pandemic. So visit your state election official website to find out if you can vote by mail. So again, that's USA.gov. And in that website, it will direct you on where you need to go. So there should be a list under the state election office website where you'll have more accurate detail, and that should answer your question. So depending on your state, your vote you may vote during a designated early voting period. You don't need an excuse to vote early. So depending on your states, find out if you can vote early. The earlier the better, because then you can get it out of the way, and then you don't have to worry about the rest of the herd that are going to come later tumbling to go down and vote. So for a few little guidelines, so yes, visit your state tutorial election office website. Check under absentee voting. And if you're going to vote by mail, request your mail-in ballot with a mail ballot application. So you want to have the application, fill it out completely, submit the request in your local election office. You can submit it there. You should request your ballot as early as possible. So the deadline to request a ballot by mail is to be received by Monday, November 2nd, 2020. So you want to mail it in so that they can receive it. It has to be in the poll or wherever it's going by November 2nd, no later than that. So I would suggest everybody mail in the last minute people, which are definitely going to be the big, overwhelming part of the post office, is everybody sending in their ballot a week before. Because most mail, you have the 2-day priority, you have the 3-day priority, or 1 day, depending on how close you are to the DC or the main official place where all these ballots are going. Now, voting in person. So for Minnesota voters, right on the election day, voters registered in Minnesota can look up where to vote on Minnesota's site. You can vote early, so Minnesotans can also vote before the election day. The early voting period runs from Friday, September 18, 2020, to Monday until November 2nd. So November 18 is the earliest time you can vote, which is literally in about a month from now. Okay, we're in August, so September 18, you can start your voting all the way until the week before November 2nd. So everything can get in by November 2nd. And all these dates and hours are going to vary based on where you live. So stay connected with your state site. For the Minnesotans, check out the Minnesota site under the USA.gov. Then there's going to be a list of states, and then click your state, and it should tell you when the votings are open and how you can vote, if you have to do it by mail or you can go in to the poll, and the deadlines. So that's for Minnesota there. Now, what to bring? You do not need to show an ID to vote in Minnesota if your voter registration is current and active. Either it is your first or so. In my suggestion, I would say bring your ID just in case. So you're going to go to the poll. You're already registered by the state, so you don't need your ID. But I would bring it still, just in case, because you never know. And a lot of these votings right now are completely unpredictable, so we don't know how we're going to get rejected or how we're going to get accepted, or, for our votes to count. Bring your ID is a must. And whether it's your state ID or your passport ID, those two IDs are pretty good ID to present as well in order for your vote to count. And also, I would start the sooner the better. So one of the biggest reasons I really want to keep pushing on the voting thing, we want change in this country. We want reform. We want different leaders. We want a better country, or bring our country back, or whatever you're fighting for. Your vote is what's going to make these change. Okay. Now, there was a saying that George Floyd brothers said, not around the time when George Floyd died. He said, "We fight, we march, we loot, we riot, we go peacefully, we go aggressively, we go in many different directions. But every time we think we are a few steps ahead, we get sunk back, few steps back." So the only thing that has not been done perfectly is that every single person needs to vote. Okay? For the black community, you really want to bring change into your community. For the black, the minorities, the immigrants, you want to bring change into your community, vote. Because the leader you select, pay attention to them, listen to them, get to know them well, do your research, do your study, know who you are voting for. If this leader is going to bring good changes into your life, or is going to bring negative changes in your life, know the difference. Because the more you educate yourself on who you're going to vote for, and who's going to be your president, or that you're going to call your president, Do your research, study them well, educate them well. Okay, education open doors to a lot of different things that we are not aware of. So voting is one of the #1 strategy to bring change. Voting brings change. Okay? And that's why I really, really agree 100% on George Floyd's brother. And even though George Floyd's death was hijacked in a situation where people are destroying buildings and burning buildings and rioting and looting and doing all of these crimes that are happening in these 4 major cities, it's completely a whole separate chaos. Yeah. But if whatever happened in the death of George Floyd, if it was, an unjust situation and it was a tragedy that happened, in order to bring that kind of change to hold, police accountable or, the murderer or the killer accountable, definitely vote. Voting is what changes everything. So, but I'm not going to speak too much on the George Floyd case because now we have 2 new footage that has came out that were released. And the only thought that run into my head is, why did they not release those videos during the time before everybody goes crazy? We only saw what was happening at the surface of George Floyd's death. And then they kept these videos away from all the American citizens for such a very long time. And now, boom, they just brought the videos back out. Why so late? Why so later? So this brings a lot of mixed feelings to a lot of people, and now many, many American citizens are silent about it. Nobody's really talking about those videos right now. It's like a slap in the face, basically. So that's how we know that this election is definitely going to be one of the most, I don't know if it's going to be like crazy, destruction, peaceful. Well, definitely not going to be peaceful. I'm pretty sure something major is going to happen on the day of the election. And, the politicians are doing everything they can to get their votes and to win and, to get the House. It's all about the White House, So we're going to take a short break, and then I'm going to move on to the next topic about, 2 children that were killed this week and how America is still, having the protests going on, the march where say his name, say her name, and things like that. So we're going to go ahead and take a short break and enjoy this song by Eddie Kenzo.
Hi, it's me again, Korma August-Stockmeyer. I'm here today to tell you more about Tempo Africa and how you can contribute. As you know, Tempo Africa is a station that services people of African descent and people in America, people in Africa. It's all over the globe. And for us to do that, we are always accepting donations. To donate, you can go to the website at tempoafrictv.com, and then you click on the home page and then click on PayPal donation, and you can make your donation there. You could also call in and make a donation. The number is 612-804-0295. I cannot tell you how grateful we are for your donation. Please take the time and check out the website and feel free to donate to this wonderful service that Tempo Africa continues to offer us abroad and at home. All this information is on the website. Just go to tempoafrictv.com and you will get more information. Thank you very much.
All right, let's get back to the topic here. So I'm going to check really quick. If anybody has any questions, in the first part I covered about the mailing information so that you have everything corrected and ready for the voting this year. So if you have any question about the mailing concerns, feel free to call in. Otherwise, I'm going to go ahead and move on to the next issue. So we have new controversies that are going on right now, and we have 2 pending cases in the killing of 2 innocent children that are just surging up the nation right now. That is waking up the nation. So first kid that I want to talk about, his name is Cornelius. Cornelius, I believe it's Cornelius. Cornelius Frederick, okay? And then the next person I'm going to talk about is Cannon Hennon. So I'm going to try to pronounce their name correctly, so bear with me. So with Cornelius Frederick, he is a 16-year-old boy who died after 30 hours at the Kalamazoo, Michigan hospital. He was being physically restrained by staff at his foster care group home. So the death of this young teen, a 16-year-old boy, had woken up the nation in a different perspective. So some of the things that are going on with the pandemic and, how people are reacting with this and treating children. So I know you guys don't hear a lot about children or what is happening with the children, but there has been a really high death rate in children right now in the United States. Okay. Last of the few cases with children that were being shot in Chicago and New York, even babies. And the boy that was shot in Seattle, Washington, the 19-year-old, where his father cried out, and more other deaths of a little boy being executed. And I did mention a couple of these stories in my previous episodes here at Temple Africa TV. So now we're going to go ahead to more new children that are being killed. And I think people should really, really be alert about this because children are dying. On April 30th, Frederick was put in a hold after throwing a sandwich at the other youths at the family service. At the Lakeside Academy in Kalamazoo, a resident facility that serves teen boys who need intensive behavior and mental health therapy. So in that process, Cornelius was sitting at his own table by himself. And there were another group of kids that were sitting on another table. So there's enough space for social distancing. Okay? But the other group of kids were throwing, I don't know if it was food or it was something, but they were throwing something at Cornelius. And then Cornelius was throwing food back at them. Anyway, to continue more with the story. So, on his way to the hospital, this was after the incident. So, he was on his way to the hospital. The news reported Frederick tested positive for the coronavirus. Meanwhile, the other youth was also tested, revealing that 40 plus 9 staff members had the coronavirus. So Frederick's death was a social distance at his own table in a facility packed with teenagers. And so basically, after Cornelius Frederick decided to throw the sandwich back, 2 staff members came on him, 2 became 3, and then 3 became many as they got him on the ground. So now there's many staff members on top of him. There's a graphic video. If you look under Cornelius Frederick, you'll be able to see it. But these multiple members that were on top of him is enough to suffocate him. So he was laying there on the ground as they tried to restrain him and put him on the ground. Who knew what they were doing? And then after a little while, for a few minutes, I don't know if it was 12 minutes exact, but it was long enough, and they were standing there while the boy was laying on the ground. At that point, they realized that he was not responsive, he is not reacting at all, and so they called the paramedics, and and he was taken to the hospital. So as he was on his way to the hospital, he was tested with the COVID-19, and he was also announced dead. So now there's a prosecutor that is assigned for the families to prosecute the facility. So 2 men became 3, and then more on top of him, suffocating him. The attorney representing his family is suing the for-profit organizations. The company is under prosecution and charging with manslaughter and child abuse. So that's basically what it is. Because you have a 16-year-old kids will always have some problems among each other. Okay, that's natural. Boys will always have some problems among each other, but kids will be kids. Sometimes they can settle their own differences in their own way. Okay, but could they have handled it differently? Yes, they could have handled it differently. Okay, now Cornelius, which is the only kid sitting by himself, throw the sandwich back at the other kids, and immediately, okay, they grabbed him and put him on a restraining hold for a while. They were putting this kid on a restraining hold, okay? Now, they probably could have just stepped him aside where he can go sit on his own somewhere, or have somebody talk to him, or, give a warning, don't throw the sandwich, a regular way you would teach a kid. Because usually when a kid is doing something like that, they don't realize that they're doing something that's going to cost their life or something that's going to cause them to die. Okay? They're just naturally doing it as a retaliation. That's what kids know. So it's the adult job to teach them that retaliation is not the way to revenge somebody else. Okay? And even if they did, they don't know better. They don't know well enough. Okay? That's why you got to teach them. Especially if these kids have mental health issues, then they definitely need that talk. Okay? Or if they can't listen or it doesn't get through their head, separate them somewhere else and have them sit on their own. So it is a really tragic. I mean, if you see the video, it's pretty graphic and it's really sad. So a lot of his family members spoke out on it. They seen him as a very lovely kid who loves to play. And of course, we always hear that about somebody that got killed or died or things like that. And we want to speak good about them, correct? So this is Cornelius, a 16-year-old, okay? He is still a child. He does not deserve to die in any way. So, but now that he is tested with COVID, he's going to be marked COVID either way. And who knows if their death is currently going to be marked as a COVID death. But now that we have an attorney that is really on this and that is going after the profit organizations that are funding or working with these facilities, they're going after them and prosecuting them and suing them and making sure that they are charged with manslaughter and child abuse, because it's definitely child abuse. So, and if you guys have here some of the, controversies about, child abuse during the pandemic, because right now we're going through a pandemic, so these facilities may not have enough equipment, or they're trying to keep up with the strategy of social distancing and making sure that the spread of the COVID is not going out as much. And yes, there's a lot of stress, there's a lot of mental issues there where you're trying to figure out not to get COVID yourself as a staff member or anything like that. So this pandemic has been a heavy stress on a lot of people, but let's not forget that we are human beings. We are forgetting that at this moment, okay? Especially if the death and the murders and the killing are reaching the children, we have totally forgot the generosity of humanity, the decence that we have in us as an American. So that's something we have to remember. Like God said, through the worst storm, learn how to be calm through the storm. Okay? Learn how to sail through the storm, through the wave. Okay? Right now we are going through a storm, different boat, whatever. It's a storm. Okay? And we still have to acknowledge that we need to be protective of our children. We still need to be generous to one another. We still need to pull out the act of kindness. Okay, these are the things we can forget. Simple strategies of what makes a human being. So the death of Cornelius Frederick is definitely one of the signs that tells us, you know, all these stress that are happening in the nursing home or in the mental health institution or facilities or things like that. People just lose heart. Kids die. Okay? Even in the elderly nursing home, you guys probably been hearing that controversy, you know. Many of them were dying of COVID-19, you know. And yeah, we understand. It's pretty hard for a pandemic. So the next kid that is really touching up the nation right now that I want to talk about is Kenan Hannon. So Kenan Hannon's situation is pretty tragic. It is sad, okay? And he's a very young child who was killed and murdered. Okay. Now, I'm going to get to you guys a little bit more detail at the end. So let me give you guys a little bit of information on what happened to him. So in the tragedy of Kenan Hannon, a 5-year-old boy who was only a few days away from starting kindergarten was shot while riding a bike in front of his home, in front of his sisters as well. This 5-year-old was playing in front of his yard and was executed in front of his home, in front of his sisters. Okay. Now imagine the disturbed mentality that's going to give these children, knowing that their brother was shot right in front of him. Okay. And not even thinking about the sake of the other children's. You know, how are they going to function with it mentally? Okay. Not even that. How are the parents going to function with it mentally? Okay. Knowing that their little boy was executed in front of their brothers and sisters, and their child is taken away from them. So, Darius is known as the next door neighbor of the boy's family, and Derek is the man identified to be the killer of Kenan Hannon. So there's a little trick to this, okay? If you Google Kenan Hannon, okay, it's a little white boy that was shot by a black man, okay? So now there's that battle going on that, we know that if it was a black man that killed a white kid, they go to jail immediately, they get prosecuted immediately, they find them, and then you have other black children that were killed and murdered by other black men, and their case don't even get looked at right away, or they don't get justice right away, and even some of the kids that are still out there that are not getting justice, okay? Now, in general, any child that is murdered is an innocent life. And any murder should be prosecuted and go to jail for it, okay? As in my previous videos, have you guys known, I've talked about these children that were killed. You know, in the beginning, it was black children that were being killed in these neighborhoods. And these crimes were some of these criminals that were released out of jail because of the COVID-19 or whatever crime rate that went up in these major cities, okay? So I spoke about this. And it's definitely something major that we should cry out about, okay? A 1-year-old that was shot in the stroller right on his forehead by another criminal, okay? These children don't deserve it. They don't deserve what is happening with them, okay? Now, here's a little difference, okay? So, when it is a black child that is being murdered or executed in a poor neighborhood or whatever neighborhood that they're living there, okay? Yes, it doesn't get looked at right away. The murder doesn't get prosecuted right away because it has been an ongoing situation for decades that the black community are not condemning these criminals that are killing and murdering people and killing each other in their community, okay? So that's something that we as black people also need to speak up on so they can be held accountable. And how we're going to make these change I don't know, bring the whole report to Donald Trump. Maybe he'll do something about it, hopefully. And with Cannon case, somebody who lives in a neighborhood in front of their house and they were being murdered, of course their case is going to get looked at right away. So there's still that racial game going on, and this is a way to stir up a lot of division and a lot of divide in the United States. So now let me continue to go on the case about Cannon. So Austin Cannon, Cannon's father, told the Wilson Times that he had a neighbor relationship with Darius Simpson. The night before the shooting, Cannon was grilling chicken and noticed him sitting in the car like he had a lot in his mind. So anyway, this is what the father did. So he simply invites Simon over. The two sat on the two of them. They sat on the front porch, sipping beer together. And the father did this because, as a Christian, he is a believer. To say the Lord says to love your neighbor, and he was trying to do something nice to his neighbor. Okay. So he believed in that. He didn't judge them or, criticize them based on his color or his character or whatever. So he went based on the scripture where Lord says, love your neighbor. That's one of the biggest commandments that we all should follow. Everybody in general, Love the Lord thy God, love your God, and love your neighbor. So love is the covenant above all, is that we're supposed to show love to others, okay? No matter what they are. We're not supposed to criticize that. And during the death of his son, which was pretty sad and dramatic for this father to have to scoop up and hold his son in his arm while he was dying. He screamed, and that's where it hit him, and it says, somebody help me, please help. Save my son, please. So these are some of the words that pierced while he looked at Simon. Okay. So he had no idea why this man decided to kill his son. The police and the paramedics arrived and tended to Cannon, and he was rushed to the hospital where he died of his injuries. So he didn't make it. And now a few words from Cannon's grandfather, Gwen Hannon. There is nothing that I could imagine that anyone would have a reason just to run up and shoot a child. So I can't. I just can't think of a reason why that seems plausible. So, which is true, because that's something a lot of us think of right away is, why would someone go in front of a child and murder a child? Why? Anybody in the cell? If a person does that, there's something wrong with them mentally, right? There's something wrong with them. So with Darius Simon, for somebody who has been invited into the family to have dinner and beer and just to enjoy the neighborly love, it's too much to have to go out and execute your neighbor's child. That's pretty sad. That's beyond sadness, But for me personally, okay, I think Darius was either under a threat, okay, where he was made to do this, or he was dared to do it, because there's this thing in the Black community, okay, and I remember this growing up, and I'm going to give you guys an example. So, and I can't say that's exactly what happened, but I'm just giving you guys a scenario and an example, okay. if you have like black friends, okay, all your friends are black, and that's mostly who you hang out with. That's your social system, and that's you speak like them, you act like them, like you guys do everything the same, okay. And then suddenly you slip away from that group, and you become friends with like a total different group, okay. Maybe these groups are mostly white, or they are minorities, or they're different. They're just different from the group that you normally hang out with. Okay. Now your original group are gonna feel some type of way. Okay. They're gonna feel some type of way, and they're gonna try to snap you out of it. Like, hey, don't hang out with that group. Don't hang out with that people. Stick to here or whatever, or you're making a mistake, or they'll criticize you really hard and call you some really horrible names, and you're like, what am I doing wrong? Even though you witness yourself that there is nothing wrong with that group that I'm hanging out with, whether they're all white kids or they're other minority kids or immigrant kids, even though you witness and you know for yourself that my friends were wrong about you guys, there is nothing wrong with these people, So why are they pissed off about me hanging out with them, And then if you continue to ignore it and continue to hang out with them, and you're telling your friends that, oh, you guys are wrong, you guys are this and this and this, and they will try to come up with a strategy. They will try to come up with a plot for you to use. Sometimes they'll go as worse as, hey, there goes one of your friends sitting alone by themselves. Now I dare you to go beat them up. I dare you to go fight them or whatever. Let's see what you're all about. These are some of the things that happens in these neighborhoods, in these community, especially when you're in a tight community and they don't want you to stand outside of the community. It could get as worse as there. So I'm giving you guys this example. This is some of the stupidity that we do as children growing up, that as an adult, especially if you have been in the game for so long, or you have been in a certain clique for so long, it's hard to get out, okay? When you're trying to get out and trying to make change, or trying to hang out with different people, or, a different perspective, or try to get a different ideology, the bigger person who runs the community is usually some criminal, and they're going to come after you and pressure you to do something very horrible beyond your imagination. Okay? Now it's up to you. You're either going to do it, and if they threaten that if you don't kill that person, we're going to kill you. Yeah. That could be one of the strategy game. Yeah. Eventually, you might just take the risk to say, okay, I'm not going to do it. For the right of humanity, you will say, I'm not going to do it. And if they kill you, evidence will show later. Okay? But if you fear whoever is running your community, or that is above you, or that is like really daring you to do that, you're going to do whatever they said. You're going to go and murder that friend, because that's what they told you to do. That's what they dare you to do. They put fear in your head. They put these other ideology in your head. That's usually what happens, that I know from a real perspective experience that some of these people go to. Now, whether that's what happened with this little kid, whether that was the scenario that happened, because, the story is very strange. It's a white child, that is being murdered by a black man. It's very rare, Black people don't go killing other minorities and other race. It's mostly within their community. It's within their own black on black crime. So for it to step outside of the black on black crime and involve a neighbor friend that was just trying to, show you love in a different way. Okay. Yeah. So as the story ends with Cannon, so the authorities in North Carolina have charged Darius Simpsons. Seasons. Sorry, I've probably been pronouncing his last name wrong. Darius Seasons, the man who murdered Cannon. They charged him with first-degree murder, being jailed without bond following his arrest on Monday. Not surprised, because that's mostly what happens. So if a black man murdered a white child, there's no getting out. The charges are going to be high. Okay, the all the other stuffs are going to be extreme. Okay, so right now, if I set it right, without bond, like he can't even get bailed out following his arrest so far, and the prosecution is still undergoing, and so we'll get more updates when we get any more updates on Darius' case, on what they have decided with him. But so far as we all know the truth, he is charged with first-degree murder and no bond. That's for sure. So now, it's a lot of this. There's so much contradictions, and we usually see a lot of these chaos happening in this country when we're close to the election. Now, whether this wasn't a plan or an agenda, for the election to try to win the House or whatever, and they have to use race. I mean, they can do it. Okay. Now, there was a man back in the I believe 1800s. Okay, who spoke very well and very clear on this. I don't remember his name at the moment, but if I do end up finding it, I'm gonna go ahead and bring out his name and the exact quote that he said next Saturday. So based on what I remember right now, he said that in the election parliament, okay, every year when we are so close to the elections, okay, both parties are going to do whatever it takes to win, okay. Whether it is throwing in racial, even when racism doesn't exist at the moment, they're going to use that because people are going to react to it. Okay, people are going to take it to the extreme. Okay, and usually around that time of the election, you'll see racism happening. You're also going to see a rise of children being murdered. Okay, white kids, black kids, you name it. So we have been seeing black children being murdered, and now we're starting to see. This is probably the first white kid that I've heard of that was murdered, and who knows if there's going to be more. So he stated this so well, and I was kind of stood by it, and not sure if that's exactly what happens before the election, but that's exactly what he said. And once I have that information, I'm going to go ahead and present it to you guys next Saturday. I don't have it exactly on me right now, but those are the two things that I really want to bring out about children. So I would really, really encourage everyone to really look out for your children, especially if you're in a very bad neighborhood where there's crime rates or weird activities going on. It seems like right now is really not a safe time for anyone, including children, until this election is over. If it still continues after the election, maybe until January 20th, until it is over. Then all of this will start to die off, and everybody can start getting to whatever mandatory law that we have, whether it is the new system that we're going to have, where we're going to be mandatory to wear face mask and have lockdowns, or we're just going to go back to our normal lives and know that it is a pandemic and it's not in human control, but only in what you know best, because everybody knows themselves. So that's pretty much that. So before we get to the last part of the segment here, I'm going to go ahead and take a short break. So I'm going to find one last song for you guys, and then I will close the show.
Hi, it's me again, Korma.
Actually, on a 1 hour, because this whole show is supposed to run for an hour. I'm just going to give you guys a quick rundown on the last things, and then I'm going to give you guys more detail on it next Saturday. If you guys have noticed, in the United States, the Democrats and the Republicans are like the two parents fighting, while we are the forgotten children caught in the middle. So Now the mainstream media shift from Donald Trump to Kamala Harris, the new vice president for Joe Biden. Okay? Now Joe Biden gets to kick back, relax, doesn't have to say a word because Kamala is running the show. She's running the whole entire show, okay? And she's pretty tough, okay? I gotta admit, she's pretty tough, okay? Now, some of the funny things that I have been hearing, just hearing from Kamala Harrison, she's, a little bit of history about her. She was born from a Jamaican father to an Indian mother. From a Jamaican father and an Indian mother. And now she has a combination of two opposite worlds. But later on, their father left, so it was just her and her little sister and her mother. So they were raised by their mother, who was half raised Christian or Catholic, and then half raised Hindu. So imagine all of the psychology, the ideology, and all the things that Kamala Harris has in her. It's like a fire, okay? You have Hindu and Catholic together. That is, she's going to be a spitful one. So anyway, I'm going to talk more about her next week. And but for now, as you guys probably already seen, it seems like we might have Kamala as our president if she wins this election. Okay, because now it is just fashing forward. Like now we can actually see the debate. We can hear the debate. So let's have the debate. Let's hear from the Democrats. Let's hear from the Republicans. So we could all make our own judgment of who to vote for and who would run this country well. Okay. So Kamala Harrison went straight to work, went straight to backfiring at Trump, went straight to saying whatever she has to say. And I know a lot of black people are really criticizing right now that she's not black enough. Well, instead of her being black American, she's a woman of color. So, good night, America. We're going to talk about this next Saturday, so tune in for it because it's going to be pretty interesting. Kamala, she's an interesting person. So, have a good night.
Hi, it's me again, Korma Agu-Stuckmeyer. I'm here today to tell you more about Tempo Africa and how you can contribute. As you know, Tempo Africa is a station that services people of African descent and people in America, people in Africa. It's all over the globe. And for us to do that, we are always accepting donations. To donate, you can go to the website at tempoafrictv.com, and then you click on the home page and then click on PayPal donation, and you can make your donation there. You could also call in and make a donation. The number is 612-804-0295. I cannot tell you how grateful we are for your donation. Please take the time and check out the website and feel free to donate to this wonderful service that Tempo Africa continues to offer us abroad and at home. All this information is on the website. Just go to tempoafrictv.com and you will get more information. Thank you very much.
C'est encore Yves Kenao, c'est toujours Yves Kenao qui revient. Cette fois-ci, pour vous dire que Tempo Afrique TV vous offre plus de 4000 chaînes de télévision. Les chaînes européennes, les chaînes américaines, les chaînes asiatiques, les chaînes africaines. À un prix imbattable. À un prix imbattable. Tenez-vous bien. $185 pour 12 mois, inclus le box. Alors, où est-ce que vous pouvez trouver mieux que ça si ce n'est pas sur Tempo Afrique TV? Mesdames, Messieurs, appelez seulement le 612 804 0295 et vous serez servi. Vous serez agréablement surpris de voir plus de 4000 chaînes de télévision roulées sur votre écran comme ça et vous choisissez laquelle vous voulez. Alors mesdames, n'hésitez pas. N'hésitez surtout pas et ne faites pas compter. Prenez votre téléphone, prenez le tout de suite et appelez le 612, le 804, le 02 95. Nous sommes là, ici à Tempo TV, pour rendre votre vie simple et agréable. Alors, saisissez l'occasion. Donc, $185 pour toute une année, pour 12 mois, inclus le box. Quoi de mieux que ça?